Good evening. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the new marijuana laws and implications on in our state. Another topic is about how your life changes after childbirth and the implications of that on your personal life. And I'm going to talk a little bit about when you're thinking of putting someone on the deed of your house and why that might not be a good idea, or at least some things to think about. So pull up a chair. Welcome to Bar Talk. Christina, you're our resident expert on all things criminal. And so when I think of marijuana, for the longest time, that was a problem if you were smoking it, had it on you. And I understand that there's been some major changes in our state.
Yes, in the last 5 years, basically, it has been completely overhauled in our state. It used to be that there was no de minimis possession exception. So
slow down, because de minimis possession exception sounds like
for
small,
you.
right?
Right. So basically, possession used to be a crime.
Okay, and now it isn't at all.
Well, so basically less than an ounce. So 28, 30 grams. 30 grams, less than 30 grams is no longer a crime.
But I need to interrupt you for a minute. You can possess it, but you're not really supposed to smoke it, right? Are we clear on this? I just need to know.
Actually, well, so 2011 was the first big change for Illinois, which was that law enforcement was given a choice. They could fine in lieu of basically prosecuting, in lieu of basically
So you're
arresting.
saying a policeman can make the decision, I found marijuana on you.
So basically it was department-wide, yeah.
Okay, and then the department says, we're going to decide to arrest this person for this reason, or we're going to decide to give him a fine.
Yes.
Well, that sounds like, red flags go up all around.
Right. For example, in Chicago, it really did not affect a lot of the arrests because it basically the police used it as a way to question and detain people.
When you have that much discretion, it's just an opportunity for it to be abused. And I think that's why, we try sometimes to have these regulations to protect all sides.
In fact, that is one of the reasons behind, basically the legislative history behind the most recent reform is that now, basically under 30 grams, it is no longer an option to arrest. It's just a fine.
Okay.
And the reason is because it was actually a problem. It was enforced unfairly with a racial bias.
So in our state, like Ish was saying, you're still not allowed to smoke marijuana recreationally, but you're allowed to have it. Is that right?
Well, it's tough because actually, 1 ounce is not very much. So basically, it's still a problem. I mean,
Don't consume it. Say no to drugs. Is that where we're still at? This is what people
well,
want to
I mean,
know.
let's move to the medical. Okay, maybe it's easier to discuss in a medical context.
Yes.
Because I'm understanding that if you have a medical reason and a prescription, if you're registered, is this all correct?
Yes, but okay. So even if you have one of the medical conditions that meets the requirement, and you get arrested, you still need that card. You still need to have that marijuana for the reason that you say you have it.
Okay.
So
and then you're allowed to use it for those purposes.
Right. There's still that fine, so you still have to worry about that fine. You don't, you could still get fined for using it.
Even if you have a medical card?
Well, no, not if you have a card.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
Even if you have the condition. So there's a list of conditions. It's a finite list of conditions.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have one of those conditions, you don't automatically get to buy it on the street. You have to get it at a dispensary, and you have to have a medical card.
So we still have a lot of restrictions in place. Even though things are a little bit looser than they were before.
Yeah, it's nothing like, there are certain states where it has been decriminalized, and we are not there yet.
Okay, so we're not Amsterdam, but we're also not the old Illinois, where we're somewhere, we're moving in a direction of, I guess, making it easier to access, but there's still some limitations.
Yeah.
Is there a takeaway for this?
Well, things are moving. I mean, it is changing fast. In the last 5 years, there have been more changes than in the last,
So I guess if
decades.
this is a topic that relates to your life, or if you have an interest in it, you might want to keep up with the changes, since they do seem to be happening pretty fast.
Thanks, Christina. Great
You're
information.
welcome. Thank you.
Great, thanks for joining us. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back. So, I'm sorry, Ish, rather. I almost called you Christina.
Oh, do you think I look like
we-
Christina? Is that
you
what
know,
you're trying to say? Come on now.
We all wore black and white tonight. I'm gonna, pretty soon I'll call
We're
you
like
Dana.
Lawyers don't all look alike.
So I wanted to talk to you about this issue of how your life changes after childbirth. I mean, I think, a lot of moms and dads out there are like, cheers to that. I get it.
Right, but we're not talking about the lack of sleep in this situation.
Exactly. Really
wanna-
referring to.
We want to talk about legal implications for the amount of control your partner or ex-partner has over your life.
Yeah, I get it. I'm also, we've mentioned before on the show, I'm a divorcee and I have 3 kids. So these are things that I deal with as well when the decisions that I now make are not wholly mine anymore.
Exactly. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone understands in Illinois that the law has changed. It used to be that if you wanted to move your child outside of state lines, you had to get permission, but as long as you were within the state boundaries, you were free to do what you wanted. And this led for some strange outcomes, right? Where, like, let's say someone used to live in the Homewood-Flossmoor area, but they wanted to go maybe 10 or 15 miles across the Indiana border into Munster or something like that. They wouldn't be permitted to, even though the distance was relatively short.
That is without agreement or
without court order.
Yeah, or what if the other parent agreed?
You would still have to go into court and have a formal agreement signed by a judge to state that you were given permission to take the child outside of state lines.
So if you're not given permission, you could actually not be able to take a great job 50 miles away.
Well, exactly. And I think with the new law, it becomes even more important that you are in agreement with your partner or ex-partner about the future of yourself and your child. Because let's say you did get that new job, or let's say you always wanted to go to Hollywood and the opportunity came up, you would not have the freedom to relocate with your minor child without either the explicit written permission of the other parent or without court order.
Wow.
Did you say that was new or old law?
So the new law is that you are permitted to move within 25 miles of the child's current residence without notifying the other parent.
And that removes that boundary line?
Right. So it could be across state lines now, which is actually giving the custodial parent more flexibility, right?
That's more fair.
It is more fair. Before you could move 3 hours downstate, and as long as you were still in Illinois, there were no restrictions on that, but that doesn't really make sense. The goal is to make sure the other parent still has access to the child, is still able to develop that parent-child relationship, and we don't want to place an undue hardship on the other parent's ability to access the child.
What do you think about these changes?
Well, I'm wondering if the parent, do you have to make a showing that the parent actually has been visiting the child? I mean, what if the parent isn't that involved and says no, just out of spite?
Well, this is why people end up in court for an extended period of time, because you're right, the other parent can say no, and as the parent who wants to move, you're left with the burden of proving that this is still in the child's best interest.
And I think that might be where the system has a hard time accommodating reality. If your reality is that the parties are not equally participating in the life of the child, then you may feel like you have more of a right to make that decision to move, but you might have to go through this system. And so that's where, you get into some complicated.
So I think the takeaway is just make sure you're prepared to have your life restricted to a certain degree once you give birth to a child. There's someone else involved, like it or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
We're going to cut to a break and we'll be right back.
Packers, Viking, Packers, Viking, Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We
Cynic.
come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back. So if you're just now joining us, we're about to talk about complications that happen if you add someone to the deed of your house. And I wanted to bring this up to you, ladies, because it's something that I hear about often in my estate planning meetings with clients.
So is it a good idea?
You know, red flags go up all around me when I hear someone say, I'd like to add this person to my to the deed of my house because I'd like to give it to them, and I think this would be an easy way. You know, without knowing for sure, I think some of the motivations are people want to avoid hiring an attorney to do a full estate plan. Maybe they think they're avoiding the probate process by adding this person's name to the deed.
Well, we're probably talking about a lot of elderly people who've paid off their property, and maybe they're thinking that they want to save costs.
That's true. That's a common demographic who is looking to make their plan or situate their affairs in order. You know, they're thinking about end-of-life issues. And some of the things that they may not be realizing when they add someone to the deed of their house is, number one, there's a creditor exposure now, because when you sign, seal, and deliver a deed, you've added someone as an owner of your home. That owner's creditor risks can attach to the value of your property.
Oh, wow.
I mean, God forbid, that person suffer some sort of car accident or disabling accident, or get sued, or have a credit card company or something like that. Some credit risk pursue your son, your daughter, whoever it is. They can now look at the value of your house as potential recovery for that.
And you might even lose your home
Well,
unexpectedly.
I mean, depending on circumstances, it can be very problematic.
It's the easiest way to collect.
A second problem is, and this I've seen happen, you may do it incorrectly. You may think you are properly adding a name to a deed. So you go and pick up a deed at an office store, or you get one online and you fill it out because it's fill in the blank, and you're not realizing that there's magic language that might need to be inserted. Sometimes the repercussions of how you fill out that deed, or whether it was properly notarized or witnessed or whatever it may be, may not have been done right. So you've completely invalidated what you were trying to do anyway. So
don't skip the lawyer, right?
yeah, I mean, the takeaway is there are a few different implications when you put someone's name on the deed. It's probably in your best interest, considering that a home is usually a main asset for a person's estate, to talk to someone and make sure that what you're doing is a good idea.
And sometimes
Great
you can get
advice.
taxed on that too, right? I mean, you'll get taxed as after the fact. right?
Taxes are a problem as well. I mean, to be very, concise, taxes from an inheritance on the real estate do not exist. So if you inherit a home, you're not going to pay a capital gains tax. But if you purchase a home, or if your name goes on the deed of a home, capital gains could be an issue at some point when you go to sell that home.
I had no idea. I bet a lot of our viewers had no idea either. Great information, Dana. Thank you.
Anytime. We'll be back right after this break.
Packers, Viking, Packers, Viking, Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown.
Optimist.
We
Cynic.
come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to move on to our hot topic tonight. Ladies, we're in an election year, and
Oh, yes, we are. Have you noticed? Because I've noticed.
I want to talk about, I don't want to get into too much about this candidate and that candidate, because I'm not interested in these political arguments so much. But I'm curious to know what you guys think are potential ramifications of elections. What is important in this election that could implicate our lives going forward, regardless of candidate? What are the issues?
Well, one thing that I know is going to be really important is that this new president is going to have a unique opportunity to nominate 1, 2, and potentially even 3 Supreme Court judges.
I think that's huge. I agree.
I mean, don't you guys really think
Yes.
about the implication this could have for the next generation?
I mean, generations. These Supreme Court justices,
They don't retire, do they?
and they live a long time. They eat a lot of vegetables because they are on that bench
Right.
for an extremely long time. So I agree. You're talking about major long-term implications.
And these
of-
laws, as we know, have a huge impact in the daily lives of millions of Americans.
And so you mentioned up to 3. Now, I'm understanding we're 1 justice short, right? Currently. And so that needs to be, but who are the other 2 that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, no one knows for sure, right? We just sort of look at the people who've been on the court the longest, and the fact is that at a certain point, you're probably going to be too old to continue to serve.
So are you thinking in the next 4 years 2 are going to retire because of their age?
That's really what people are contemplating.
Okay.
And of course, you never know.
You never know.
Who are the 2 that are ready, possibly?
Justice Ginsburg
Ginsburg.
and also Justice Breyer. Is that correct?
Well, he is a little bit older. I'm not sure though about his age.
Okay. You know, I wasn't sure. I
But you
just
never
thought I'd
know. I
ask
mean,
if you
sometimes
knew.
judges pass away. You know.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, anytime.
I don't think
that-
anyone predicted that what would happen to Judge Scalia. He passed away, and
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was a total shock.
it was
And
a shock. Yeah.
Not only the shocking occurrence, but also it happened to be Justice Scalia, who, as we all know, had a very strong opinion on, one side of. He definitely was not the
partisan
swing
debates,
vote.
right.
Yeah, he was on one side of the spectrum. So I agree. Do you know more about why we weren't able to nominate someone in this presidential term?
I think there's a lack of consensus, I might say, in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely I agree. But it's interesting to me that there was some debate about the process, even they
Right.
were debating
That's
about who has
somewhat
the right to
unprecedented.
nominate. Yeah, so the next president is going to be in prime position to nominate at least the one that we're missing, and like you said, potentially 2.
Potentially more. Stay tuned.
Well, that wraps it up for our show tonight. We hope you enjoyed our topics. If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear them, and you're welcome to reach out to us on Facebook or on Twitter. Until next time, have a nice evening. Good night.